But the thing is that you can be an under guy and still get plenty of shaft lean and, have a 60 degree that's wide open, and by the time you're making contact, your dynamic loft could be 45. It's just setup change, right?
Yeah.
I mean, way open, way back, right? I mean, I'm coming into that plenty steep from there, right?
That makes sense.
It's just a setup change.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're doing, a pretty standard symmetrical looking setup, right? And you're an under player, I mean, you really are, you're going to be grazing a lot of turf pretty early on, right?
Probably.
Right? And not leaving much of a divot.
Yeah.
If you've got it kind of center, right? And pretty neutral with the feet, but still working it as an under player. Probably have to have some feels of being really wide, right?
100%.
So that you don't hit it way back here.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like what we talked about just before we started filming all this with the bunkers, and how me and Chad, when I met with him last week, we had this maybe theory that could be right or wrong, who knows, about different styles of players might need different bounces on their highest lofted wedge.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
if you think about it, what about bunkers? The more sand you have, you want to be taller, you want to be more bounce, and you want to be shallower into the sand.
Right.
Versus when you have a little bit of sand in the bunkers, you're trying to be, if anything, I choke down on it in less sand. I'm on my left side more, and I'm trying to be more vertical, up and down,
Yeah.
and thump it like that. I mean, that's a cover feel.
Right.
Soft sand is more of a under feel. And what do you need more of in thick sand? Bounce.
Right.
So it's all kind of like linked in together.
Right.
Just with that example.
And
So that's our theory of, if we test it out, there might be some correlation there.
Right. And for a, on top guy like me, when I get into really, really soft sand, I make setup changes so that I come in shallower and take less sand. I get tall, I get long and slow.
Yeah.
I'm only looking about that far back behind the ball, not taking much sand. But then when the sand is firm and wet, I start licking my chops, right? Because I'm just...
Yep.
Yep.
I like it.
Yep. Let's do another
Am
under.
Am I in the frame here?
Probably.
Okay.
Under, kind of playing it middle. Pretty neutral with the setup, and I'm just going to stay really wide on it. Right? And I mean, I'm just grazing turf there.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes a lot of sense to me. Width is your friend.
But if I want to hit like a lower saucy one as an under, I'm going to get open, right? Which is going to cause the club to steepen. I'm going to play it way back, and I can still have under feels, right?
Nice, dude.
And tons of dynamic loft and yeah, I mean, I set up to that one with the face at 80 degrees, and by the time I hit the ball, it was probably, 46 or something,
whatever.
right? And I didn't change anything. I still tried to move the club like an under player. I just put it way back in my stance and really opened up my stance so that I added in some steepeners.
Exactly.
Right? But then if I'm working it like an on-top guy, I can pretty much hit that same shot with a feel of the ball being pretty far forward, right?
Exactly. Just like that.
Right?
That was pure.
Still coming out low. But I mean, you could see it. I mean, it looked like completely different setup, right?
100%.
because what I did on that one was I just flipped it. Everything with my hands and my arms, those were all steepeners.
Yeah.
And my setup was a shallower.
Is a shallower. Because of our grips are different.
Right.
You have to match up to what the grip is telling us.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And whatever grip you have to match it up, because if you make a nothing swing, is what we like to call it, it's not going to go online. Something's going to happen to make it go offline. And it's a math equation at that point. You got to add and subtract, give and take. There's a trade-off with every move you make.
Right.
So that's why there's almost no right and wrong. It's cause and effect. It's if you do this, this will happen, and then this will happen, and this will. So it's all linked together in that weird way.
It's just a matter of like understanding it, which is like the one thing that's been going on with me, and it's interesting to me that one, this stuff hasn't caught on to a bunch of people. That's odd to me. And then second of all, really what it's doing is it hasn't changed my thought process in regards to like what I see. It's how I see it and how I'm able to translate things to people.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like I've known forever.
Because you can speak their language.
Right.
Essentially.
I've known forever that if I'm watching a guy that I'm working with, or he's a buddy or whatever, and he's nutting it, hitting it great, going like that, I'm not going to tell him to feel like he's rotating his hips like this and staying centered, right? I already knew that that's stupid, right? But now I can explain to people why, instead of just going, no, that guy shouldn't be touched because he's really good, and he's really good for a reason, and that's how we should be moving the club.
Especially if they're super talented.
Yeah, right.
Especially if they're super talented.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We've seen many examples go both ways, which is another subject.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's almost like an elephant in the room in golf.
Mm-hmm.
People have short memories with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, you know, some players don't get touched, and look at them. They're on tour winning.
Right.
We can name names, but
Mm-hmm.
they're out there.
Yep. They are. They
And
are.
It was a good thing that they just kept doing their thing, because that's the way they do it best.
Yeah.
Why change it?
Yeah. It might be the toughest thing to do when you're a junior golfer that's winning tournaments. Everybody's got an opinion,
And
right?
this is where I think
This-
junior golfers could really benefit from this stuff.
Yeah.
Colleges, college coaches too.
College
benefit from this
coaches.
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to someone we know, I don't know if you want to bring it up, but they were turned down by bigger schools because of how his swing looked.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up being one of the best players.
Mm-hmm.
He currently is one of the best players in the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
But they maybe didn't recruit him because his swing looked bad.
Right. Mm-hmm. You're almost
the way it goes.
like completely negating the fact that when they were going out watching him play in tournaments, he was making a ton of birdies, which
Yeah.
is, at the end of the day, that's the goal of the game, is having the least amount of strokes, right?
Yeah.
But it's so odd that there's so much emphasis put on aesthetics. There really is. And, you know, we were talking about it before, you know, that's just another, like, mind game that Tiger didn't even have to really play with anybody, because everybody was just trying to emulate his perfect lines, right? And then, you know, Adam Scott came right after him, and this guy's got a gorgeous move with impeccable lines, right? And everybody wants to look like Adam and Tiger, right?
They're impeccable lines to the human eye, but
Mhm.
we live in a 3D world.
Mm-hmm.
We only see from a 2D perception, unfortunately.
Right.
So don't get caught up in how it looks from your point of view,
Yep.
essentially. Even for anyone that's looking at golf swings, it's like there's more to the story than just how it looks from this one angle. Yeah, but you know, the more you're into this game, you understand how it can look just from experience throughout the rest of the swing, just from your angle at the
Mhm.
moment. But there's more to it that people need to understand. There's all correlations between all these things.
Right.
I think it's going to eventually get this way, where golf is being taught this way.
Mm-hmm.
We're just at the beginning of it, but yeah, this is how things go. Things change for the better eventually. So
Yeah. Yeah.
hopefully we'll see a lot more junior players thrive
Mm-hmm.
and break all the records, and
Mm-hmm.
because that's what it's all about. You gotta
Mhm.
fucking break Tiger's records.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the promising things, is that you do see the last 10, 15 years, you are seeing less of the, beautiful, symmetrical looks. I
Yep.
think that, everything is either, cyclical or goes in waves. Back in the 60s and 70s, early 80s, you had, and prior to, you had a bunch of original looking moves.
Well, that's because no
Right.
one was filming their video,
Right.
or their swings on video.
Right, right,
It wasn't a thing yet.
right. And then you get into the 90s, and there's a lot more symmetry and, quote unquote, perfect look to the eye type of moves.
Yeah.
Right. And then, early 2000s, you started to see, a wave of guys that did not look a specific way, like a DJ or.
Well, everyone went that way.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger did the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Culture. It's like a cultural thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just because it's trendy, everyone thinks it's the best way or whatever. you know?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It all bleeds into golf too. Whatever happens in normal life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I just think the biggest eye opener for me is that, everybody's different. Everybody's different.
this all proves it.
Yeah.
It does.
And you might not
Right.
be able to see it with your own eyes right off the bat, but you put somebody through a screening and you go, man, that went a direction that I did not expect it to
we
go.
can all assume because we talked about this with our buddy Jake. We could have guessed before I measured him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I thought he was front post, whatever, maybe under, with
What did you think he was
not a
going to
lot
be?
with not a lot of external rotation.
Uh-huh.
But he was rear post,
Mm-hmm.
side cover,
Yeah.
with probably 100 degrees of external rotation.
Mm.
So now that I can see that baseline, I showed him a couple things real quick because we were leaving
Mhm.
from his place.
Yeah.
A couple different feels with his tilts and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think he'll start to realize, one, it's going to help his back a lot because he's had back issues
Mhm.
for a long time that he's been trying to fix.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like stuff like this, he felt it already. He
Mhm.
told me later at that day that felt better,
Yeah.
like right away for his back.
Mm.
He can now go play golf for a long time
Right.
and not have to worry about his back. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think if he keeps going into this, which I hope he will,
Mm-hmm.
he'll start to see the ball go where he wants
Right.
more
Mm-hmm.
because he's super talented. He's played at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's going to unlock him. I
Yeah.
say unlock a lot when we're teaching, but
Mhm.
that's what we're doing with people.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, nice, dude.
Nice.
Good stuff. Hopefully, I'm in the frame the whole time.
I think you were. I think anything right of that.
Blading it.